the house and don't take anything with you. Fine by me. Just stop making life miserable for Sophia and the others. What on earth are these people talking about? But something inside me snapped at that moment. All right, I'll leave then. Good riddance. That'll get rid of an annoyance. We can finally live happily just as a family. With those snide comments from my sister-in-law Catherine and her husband Robert, I packed my bags and left. Why didn't you tell us? Now, the in-laws have finally caught on. But it's too late. Let them suffer, serves them right. My name is Anna, a 32-year-old office worker. I married my husband Ken 3 years ago. I met Ken through work. He would often come to my workplace for business, and I was drawn to his hard-working attitude. During a casual night out with coworkers, I ran into Ken at a bar and we ended up drinking together. As the evening went on, we found ourselves sitting next to each other and engaged in various conversations. Turns out, we both attended the same high school. Ken is 2 years older than me. Apparently, he was a senior when I was a freshman. But we never met. Maybe we passed each other in the hallway. That's a funny thought. It's hard to imagine we walked the same high school hallways, meeting only later in life. Back then, I was likely immature, full of that teen energy and noise. Who knows, maybe he saw me in the hallways and found me annoying. Thinking about it now, I'm glad we met after we both matured a bit. That night out was the catalyst for Ken and me growing closer. He eventually asked me out to dinner, and we started meeting up after work. One date led to another, and we became a couple. Ken was kind, mature, and someone I could rely on. Gradually, I found myself falling for him. Our relationship progressed smoothly. And about a year in, Ken popped the question. Anna, you're the one for me. I think it's fate we went to the same high school. Will you marry me? Yes. I'd be honored. And so, we decided to get married. Next, we had family meetings with each other's parents. My parents were quite fond of Ken, which put me at ease. Who would have thought you both went to the same high school? That school has a great culture. I have a coworker from there who's really dedicated. A trustworthy person, I'd say. My dad can be quite stubborn, so hearing him say that was a relief. Ken had graduated from a prestigious university and worked for a reputable company. So I wasn't too worried, but it was nice to have my parents' approval. Then we visited Ken's family for another family meeting. That's when things got a little uncomfortable. Ken's parents weren't exactly the warmest people. So you're Ken's fiancé? You're quite plain, aren't you? We were hoping for a supermodel or at least the daughter of a big company's CEO, given where Ken works. Hey, Dad, Mom, that's rude. Just kidding. You always take things so seriously, Ken. Right, don't take it to heart. Just parent humor. Sophia, my mother-in-law, and William, my father-in-law, were clearly mocking me. You didn't go to a famous university, and I've never heard of your company. But as long as you focus on housework and have children, it won't be an issue. They made it sound like I was just a housekeeper and a baby-making machine. That family meeting made me instantly uncomfortable around my in-laws. Nevertheless, we wrapped up the meetings and got married. Married life was blissful. We both worked hard at our jobs and shared household chores. Ken was an excellent cook, even better than me. So I always looked forward to his meals. Whenever I made a request, he'd whip up that dish, and it would always taste amazing. Even when I'd come home tired from work, eating Ken's cooking would lift my spirits. Of course, when it was my turn, I put my all into cooking. Ken would always compliment my cooking, saying it was delicious. I really liked the depth of flavor in Anna's cooking. I guess I tend to overcomplicate things a bit, you know? No way, Ken. Your food tastes like it came straight from a restaurant. I feel like we have our own personal chef. Really? That means a lot to hear you say that. We were always full of praise for each other. That's why we've been able to have such a harmonious married life. 2 years have flown by since we got married, and we're still as close as ever. But there's been one nagging issue. We haven't been able to have kids. Now, it's only been 2 years, so we're not exactly in a rush. But the pressure from my in-laws has been substantial. When are you going to get pregnant, Anna? Sophia, you asked about this just last week over the phone. These things don't change overnight. What are you talking about? If you keep procrastinating, that's why you won't have children. Are you sure you're even capable? What? Did you hide that from Ken when you married him? Absolutely not. If you're lying, I won't let it slide. Sophia often cornered me like this. Eventually, I underwent fertility testing and reported to my in-laws that I was fully capable of having children. They weren't exactly thrilled, but at least they understood I could have kids. Still, they continued to heap on the pressure. If you're capable of having kids, then hurry up. What a useless daughter-in-law. Being pressured like this only makes it harder to conceive. Every visit to the in-laws' house became an ordeal. And both of them would only criticize me when Ken wasn't around. Sophia would often call to confirm Ken was away before launching into her tirades. Life with Ken was great, but dealing with the in-laws was causing me a lot of stress. I felt uneasy, fearing that I'd have to endure their criticisms indefinitely. However, amidst all this, another issue arose. William, Ken's father, became frail and needed nursing care. And, of course, the in-laws expected us to move in with them. Ken is the eldest son, so it's only natural that he helps out. Since you can't have kids, the least you can do is be useful. They continued to press us like this. And Ken, unaware of the emotional toll his parents were taking on me, broached the subject of us moving in together. Mom seems to be struggling a lot. I really want to help out if I can. What do you think? I was really torn. Living together would likely be hard. My in-laws have been giving me a hard time behind Ken's back. If I outright say no, Ken would be shocked. So, I decided to lay down some conditions. Okay, I get that Sophia and the family are having a hard time. Can I add some conditions of my own? Sure, go ahead. I'm the one asking for a favor, after all. Thanks. First off, I won't be taking care of William. Normally, that should fall on Sophia or their actual son, you, Ken. Also, I want to continue working. If you can agree to these 2 conditions, then we can live together. As I said this, Ken looked at me seriously. He might be disappointed. Maybe he'll say it's a problem if I'm not willing to cooperate with his parents. But Ken looked me in the eye and said, "All right. I accept your conditions. I'll make sure not to put any burden on you." Facing Ken, who looked at me straight on, I decided to trust him. And so, we moved into my in-laws' house to begin our life together. They seemed to think they could boss me around, as Sophia quickly started issuing orders. Anna, please take care of William. And also, could you clean the shower and handle all the cooking? Sophia said this as if it were a given. But I trusted Ken, so I stood my ground. I won't be doing any nursing care for William. That's not my role. I'll help out with household chores as much as I can, but not to the extent that it interferes with my job. So, don't pile everything on me. Hearing this, Sophia's eyes widened in anger. What? What are you saying, Anna? If you won't do it, then who will? That would be the job of you, Sophia, or his son Ken. What are you talking about? There's no way I'll let Ken do it. You should do it. Sophia yelled at me. And during dinner, she said, "It seems Anna doesn't care about us at all. She doesn't even want to help with William's nursing care. All I asked for was a little help in tough times." Sophia tried to make it seem like I was the one at fault. She probably thought Ken would scold me. But Ken said, "Well, those were the conditions for living together." Huh? My in-laws were surprised. Ken continued, unfazed. "When we agreed to live together, Anna and I made a promise. She won't assist with any nursing care, and she will continue to work." What? You can't be serious. The in-laws were speechless, stunned by how things had unfolded. Inside, I struck a mental victory pose. I regretted not talking to Ken about the harassment from the in-laws sooner. From that moment on, they couldn't boss me around anymore, and they seemed frustrated. For the most part, I lived peacefully without any unreasonable demands. Of course, I still helped with chores and contributed money to the household through Ken. I thought the in-laws would resent me if I gave the money directly. Then William's health started to decline, and he needed to be hospitalized. The doctors said the treatment and hospital fees would be quite expensive. Sophia was really stressed about it. "I'm on a fixed income now. Why does this have to cost so much?" Ken had reduced his work hours to help care for his dad. So our income had decreased too. Seeing Sophia struggle, I decided to help out financially. I told Ken, "Give this to Sophia and say it's from you," offering to cover William's monthly medical bills. Ken initially refused, but he really cares for his parents, so I insisted. "Don't be shy. We're married, after all," I said. Ken replied, "Thank you, this really helps." Grateful for my support. We continued our lives together while William underwent treatment. Then, one day, an unexpected visitor arrived. Catherine, my sister-in-law. "So, Dad's in the hospital? Tough break. But that means there's an empty room here, right? So we can move in, can't we?" Catherine had barely set foot in the house before she dropped this bombshell. We'd only met her a few times, like at our wedding and hers, and at family events. Since we moved into the in-laws' house, she'd never visited. So her sudden appearance and proposition caught me off guard. It seems she wants to live here. Honestly, I'd prefer if she and her husband moved in and we moved out. But Sophia declined, saying, "Ken's here now, and Dad might come back, so it's not possible." Catherine seemed to have expected this and quickly backed down, saying, "Yeah, figures." However, she did make it clear that she was ready to move in any time. And from that point on, Catherine started visiting the in-laws' house more frequently. Today, I made dinner inspired by what Mom taught me. What do you think? Catherine had been frequently cozying up to Sophia. It seemed like she was eager to replace us in our joint living arrangement. I had an inkling that something was off about Catherine. Could she be hiding something? Around that time, an unexpected event occurred. Ken got into a car accident on his way home from work and passed away. I rushed to the hospital, but it was too late. I was devastated. To lose my beloved partner so soon. I had wanted to make so many more memories with Ken. The in-laws were also grieving over the sudden news of Ken's death. Even after the funeral, I couldn't come to terms with Ken being gone and felt really down. My boss gave me an extended leave, hoping I would recover soon. But being at the in-laws' house, my heart felt no peace. I had paid for William's medical treatment for this month, and planned to stay there until I found a new place. I was also a bit worried about Sophia being alone. We might not like each other very much, but we've both lost someone dear. We're both hurting, I thought. But then Sophia trampled all over my good intentions. The tipping point came one day when Catherine and her husband visited.
Why is Anna still here even though Ken has passed away?
Catherine questioned Sophia like that. Sophia chimed in. I was thinking the same thing. We've been busy with the funeral, but we're not obliged to keep Anna, an outsider, here. Fueled by Sophia's words, Catherine and her husband became even more assertive.
Outsiders should leave, and leave your assets too.
Exactly. Don't burden Sophia and the rest any longer. What on earth are these people talking about? But something in me snapped then. Fine, I'll leave. They looked surprised when I easily agreed, but then they smirked. Now we can get rid of the troublemaker. We can finally live happily just as a family.
Don't worry, Mom. From now on, we'll be the ones living here.
As they spoke those words, I packed my bags and left. A month had passed since then. Living in a studio apartment near my workplace, I had been focusing on my career. Then one day, I received a call from an unknown number. Hello? Thinking it might be work-related, I answered. It was Sophia.
Anna, why didn't you tell me? I had no idea you were the one paying for William's medical bills. And the money in the house, it wasn't Ken but you.
It was too late for the people in my in-laws' house to realize the truth. They had it coming. I thought it would make things easier if we said the money came from Ken. Truthfully, Ken was cutting back on work to help with William's nursing care, so I was the one making significantly more money.
So, that's how it was. I'm sorry for not noticing. Can you help us again?
No way.
What? Why?
I always tried to be minimally supportive as family, even when mistreated by you and others. But you continued to harass me without knowing the truth, even trying to kick me out. I've put an end to my marital ties with the late Ken. We're now complete strangers. Please figure out how to handle William and your daughter's family issues on your own. I said that. And hung up. Then, I blocked her number. I later learned from a relative still in contact with me that William had tried to force Sophia into a divorce to prioritize his own treatment. He probably thought they could afford it if one less person needed supporting. However, Sophia refused, insisting she would only agree to a divorce if she got a huge settlement. Right now, their family is a mess, embroiled in legal battles. Both are being emotional, but they'll soon realize the lawyer fees will bleed them dry. Eventually, there won't be any assets left to divide. Catherine and her husband, it turns out, had debts, and they were close to being kicked out back then. In-laws have just now realized the fact, but it's too late. They were planning to mooch off my in-laws. But that failed miserably as my in-laws are now on the brink of divorce. Currently, Catherine and her husband are living in a cheap apartment and are asking relatives and friends for loans. However, no one is lending them money because they can expect that they will never get it back. Their debt will continue to grow with interest, making their situation even worse. Knowing my in-laws are spiraling downward like this, I thought, serves you right. I decided to put them behind me and move on. Of course, I'll never forget Ken, who was kind to me. I plan to live my life to the fullest so that someday, we'll have a lot to talk about in heaven.
Hello. Hope we're not disturbing.
Suddenly, the living room door opened, and in came my husband's colleague, Miller. Following him, about 4 others entered one after another, with my husband, Kevin, trailing behind them with a crude smile.
Sorry, but what's going on here?
Today's a barbecue with friends. Hurry up and buy some meat and beer. Kevin, who had established a habit of talking down to me, said this to me. It seems like birds of a feather flock together, as Kevin's friends were also directing crude smiles our way. I was furious.
I'm actually about to go on a trip, so that's not possible.
What? Kevin's face filled with anger, as if embarrassed in front of his friends. Normally, I would panic and comply upon seeing that look on his face, but now, completely out of patience, I couldn't care less about Kevin's mood.
Just make sure you're careful with fire, okay?
Hey! I ignored them all and left the house. However, a few hours later, I received a call while on my trip that my husband had been taken into police custody. What on earth did he do? My name is Isabella. I'm a 48-year-old civil servant. My parents died in a car accident when I was in college. I live in the house they left me, and I graduated college with the help of insurance money and scholarships. I was lucky enough to become a civil servant, and though living alone was lonely, it was stable. The administration I worked for was far from the house I lived in, so I rented out the house I lived in with my parents and rented a studio near my workplace for myself. I rented out the house as is, but it quickly found a tenant because of its good location. The person who rented the house was very kind, and knowing my circumstances, told me I could come over any time. Thanks to the rental income and my civil servant salary, I was living a more stable life than others my age. Around that time, visiting tourist spots became my hobby. There's a unique atmosphere everywhere, somehow reassuring yet making me tense, and I loved it. I met my husband, Kevin, at a book club for working adults that a friend invited me to. I was instantly drawn to the quiet and kind Kevin. Perhaps sensing that, Kevin actively pursued me, leading the way in our relationship, which was difficult for me to navigate. After dating for 2 years, he proposed on my 29th birthday, and we got married. The following year, our daughter, Evelyn, was born, and we were very happy. However, that's when Kevin's true nature began to show. Since I was working, we had agreed to share household chores. Kevin had kept to this agreement until I went on maternity leave, but as soon as I started my leave, he began going out to drink more often and completely stopped doing any household chores as soon as I took parental leave.
Hey, the dishes are your job, right?
Please.
What? You've been lazing around all day at home and you're giving orders? You should do it,
Kevin said, and quickly prepared to go out. After Evelyn was born, he would go out to drink about 4 times a week on his own, not caring at all for Evelyn. Juggling childcare and household chores while suffering from sleep deprivation due to night feedings was extremely hard. But complaining to Kevin didn't help. He didn't understand at all and would insult me by saying I was inefficient. Continuing this life made my love for Kevin fade, and by the time Evelyn was 5, I saw him merely as a roommate. Fortunately, I didn't have to work overtime or on weekends and holidays. This allowed me to spend a lot of time with Evelyn. Although Evelyn was a handful with her night crying and frequent feedings as a baby, by the age of 6, she had become a very mature child. She was clingy when it was just the 2 of us, but she also took the initiative to help around the house and always said thank you for each little thing. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that watching Evelyn grow was my only joy, and I adored her. However, Kevin was not involved with Evelyn, only occasionally approaching her when he was in a good mood. By then, his true colors were fully shown, not doing household chores, not participating in child-rearing, and going out to drink almost daily, coming home smelling of women's perfume. But I had grown so indifferent to Kevin that I didn't care anymore. Even so, the reason I didn't choose divorce was to not make life difficult for Evelyn. Honestly, with the rental income from my parents' house and my salary, I could easily afford to send her to college. But I didn't want to burden Evelyn if I became unable to work. Fortunately, Kevin seemed to be competent at his job, and even though it was a small to mid-size company, he earned more than I did. Thus, I had come to view him as the person who would earn the money for Evelyn's education and our living expenses. However, around the time Evelyn entered high school, Kevin's spending got worse. I had always let him spend freely on anything other than Evelyn's tuition and living expenses, but then the school contacted me saying the tuition payment had not gone through. I hurriedly transferred the money from my own account to avoid trouble, but this made me realize there was no benefit to staying married and not divorcing. Thinking this, I approached Kevin, who was about to go out and was looking at himself in the mirror in the bathroom.
Hey, the school called saying Evelyn's tuition payment didn't go through.
Huh, so?
So? What do you mean so? You were supposed to pay for it. That kid has been kind of rude lately. Always glaring at me. That's because she's going through adolescence, isn't it?
I felt a headache coming on. Kevin himself must have gone through a rebellious phase. Yet he refuses to take an interest in his own daughter's growth and uses her being rebellious as an excuse not to pay for her tuition, which is just the lowest, not just as a dad but as a person. At this moment, I decided to divorce Kevin once Evelyn started college. And until then, I resolved to act like a compliant wife. As I was thinking this, Kevin looked at me with a smug smile.
What? You know, I hardly ever come home, and do I really need to contribute to the living expenses? So, how about this? I'll pay for that kid's school fees instead of giving you living expenses.
Fine. My recently made resolution was already being tested, but I managed to hold firm. Not contributing to the living expenses was unthinkable. But not having Evelyn's tuition paid would be a bigger problem, so I reluctantly agreed. And the money that used to go to living expenses now became Kevin's pocket money, making his lifestyle even more extravagant. One day, as I was walking through the entertainment district on my way home from work, I spotted Kevin with his arm wrapped around the shoulder of a man I recognized. Kevin hadn't noticed me, but the man next to him did and came over. If it isn't Isabella. What are you doing here?
Well,
I think I met him at our wedding, but he wasn't introduced, so I didn't know his name. And despite the distance, he already smelled strongly of alcohol. How long had they been drinking? I managed to suppress my urge to grimace and put on a smile.
Oh, I'm Miller. Kevin and I were in the same club at college. By the way, Isabella, you're really beautiful. How about one night with me? Just kidding.
Hey. If you want a middle-aged woman like this, I'll give her to you. More than Miller's frivolous words, I was shocked by Kevin's words. Even if he was drunk, those were not words to be uttered in front of his wife.
Really? Maybe I'll book a hotel next time then.
I'll pass. I'm in a hurry, so I'll be going. A chill ran down my spine, and I quickly left the scene. I could hear Miller and Kevin saying something behind me, but I ignored it all. That night, Kevin, who seemed to have come home in the middle of the night, didn't even remember seeing me the next morning. When I asked about Miller, Kevin bragged about how he had started some profitable business recently and that he had gone to hear about it yesterday.
Don't come begging for money when I become rich, okay?
I responded lightly to his buoyant words. As long as Evelyn's tuition was paid, I had no expectations from Kevin anymore. However, a decisive incident would occur a little after Evelyn started college. It happened on the day I was planning to take a solo trip, intending to use up my accumulated paid leave. After gathering everything at the entrance, I took a break. Kevin had left in a happy mood that morning, so I had sent him a message just in case. He had read it, so I felt I had done my duty, and I sipped my tea. Then there was a sound from the entrance, and I thought Kevin had come back unusually early, but the person who came through the door made me almost spit out my tea.
Hello. Hope we're not disturbing.
Suddenly, Miller walked in through the living room door, followed by about 4 others.
Sorry, what's going on here? I'm having a barbecue with some friends. Hurry up and buy some meat and beer.
Just like Kevin, who was laughing, his friends were also giving me crude smiles. I was furious.
I'm about to go on a trip, so that's not possible. What?
Kevin's face filled with anger as if he was embarrassed in front of his friends. Normally, I would have panicked and complied upon seeing his face, but now, completely fed up, I had no interest in Kevin's mood.
Just be careful with fire, okay? Hey!
I ignored them all and left the house. However, a few hours later, I received a call while on my trip that my husband had been taken into police custody. What on earth did he do? The call from the police was for identification, and they said I didn't need to come to the station right away. Apparently, they asked Kevin if he could prepare clothes for staying in the detention center because the interrogation might take a while, and he gave them my name and contact details.
We could lend some and bill you later.
Oh, that's fine. Please make him pay for it. Understood.
We'll contact you if there's anything else.
Yes, please do. It seems the reason for being taken into police custody was attempting to forcibly bring a woman who was walking outside while drunk into his home. It was a red-handed arrest, and there was no room for excuses, and he would likely be charged. Miller was facing other charges, and there was a possibility that Kevin was involved as well. Hearing that, I sat down on the spot. It was good that I had arrived at my destination. I cried. Then, coffee was placed on the table in front of me.
Mom, are you okay? What happened?
Actually, the place I was traveling to was the area where Evelyn's university is located, and I was going to stay at Evelyn's place during my trip. The call from the police came just as I was about to take a break after arriving at Evelyn's place.
Dad's been arrested by the police. The reason is a bit.
It's okay. Tell me when you've calmed down. Hey, Mom, maybe you should seriously consider divorce. You've been enduring for my sake, right? I ranked first in my class this time. I got a scholarship with no repayment obligation, my professor told me. So, I'll be fine.
Evelyn.
You're right. Evelyn's words made up my mind. As a parent, I felt unreliable for making my daughter say this, but at the same time, I was very happy that Evelyn had grown up to be so kind and splendid. A few days later, I received a call from the police that only Kevin had been released. It seemed Kevin claimed to be a victim, unaware that Miller's business involved criminal activity. In fact, it was proven that Kevin knew nothing, and he was declared innocent, which disappointed me internally. The day after the police contacted me, Kevin called me. I didn't want to answer the phone, but thinking about what comes next, I decided to answer.
Hello? You picked up. Where the hell are you?
At Evelyn's place. When I said that, Kevin seemed to think for a moment. But eventually, he didn't come up with an answer and quickly raised his voice.
I don't know where that kid lives. Just come back home. The housework is piling up.
Sorry, but I'm not coming back.
What?
My firm refusal seemed to surprise Kevin, and he was momentarily speechless. I repeated slowly to the silence on the other end of the phone. I'm not coming back. Please, let's get a divorce.
Do you even know what you're saying?
Kevin managed to squeeze out some words. I didn't respond to him. Then, simultaneously, I heard the sound of a mobile phone being dropped on the other end. He must have been quite shocked. I delivered the final blow. Let's discuss the rest through a lawyer. I'll have my lawyer contact you later.
Wait, hey! Isabella!
Kevin was calling my name, but I hung up without a care. Then, I contacted the lawyer I had just hired yesterday. It seemed the lawyer had reached out to Kevin immediately, as I received multiple calls from Kevin, all of which I ignored. I then contacted my workplace. I had already been considering early retirement, but I took this as an opportunity to resign and decided to live near Evelyn. Fortunately, I had an inheritance left by my parents and a steady income from renting out my family home. Additionally, I would receive a severance package, so living on my own wouldn't be an issue. Since it would take about 2 months to finalize my resignation, I rented a short-term apartment near my workplace to wrap up my job. I commuted from there and completed the handovers and other work. During this time, Kevin called me multiple times, but I had my lawyer handle all communications. Kevin was adamant about not wanting a divorce, and despite hearing how much he had hurt me,
I didn't do it. It's all a misunderstanding.
He kept insisting. Reluctantly, I agreed to a meeting. It was challenging to even set a date, but 3 weeks after proposing the meeting, we finally scheduled it, and I prepared myself for a major confrontation. On the day of the meeting, the person who showed up at the meeting place was a completely sullen middle-aged man.
I'm not going to divorce. I was just deceived. I'm not at fault.
Let's sit down and talk about it. I responded dispassionately to Kevin's remarks and entered the restaurant ahead of him. The high-end restaurant, designed with separate rooms for each table, was where Kevin and I had celebrated our engagement with a meal.
Do you remember this place? Huh?
Kevin's response extinguished the last bit of sentiment I had left. Even after everything, we were once committed to spending a lifetime together. I had hoped that remembering this place might lead to a more amicable discussion, but my consideration was in vain. Let's start the discussion. At my cue, the lawyer beside me took out several documents. They contained evidence of Kevin's actions and infidelity, as well as details about the dubious business he was involved in with Miller. Kevin looked over them with annoyance, then sighed.
If you have complaints, say them directly. Sneaky woman.
These are not complaints, but facts needed for our discussion. Kevin seemed to become even more irritated upon hearing this. Still, I was unwavering. However, when a new document was presented, Kevin's complexion changed.
Hey, this is...
Oh, didn't you know? The document included a photo of a woman in a wedding dress and her husband, smiling happily. Kevin paled at the sight of the two. The woman you're currently having an affair with, she's your boss's wife, right?
No way!
Kevin, apparently unaware, looked utterly panicked. His earlier defiance had vanished, replaced by sheer panic. Investigations revealed that Kevin had been involved with the affair partner for about 3 years, considering divorcing me and marrying her until their communication recently became sporadic. She had married Kevin's boss before meeting Kevin. Apparently, it was a shotgun wedding. They had just taken their 10th anniversary wedding photos. Of course, the evidence was sent to Kevin's company, and it was scheduled to be delivered to Kevin's boss today. The affair partner would also be receiving a certified mail by now.
Speak of the devil.
At that moment, Kevin's phone, placed on the table, rang, displaying his boss's name. Kevin didn't answer, so I tapped to take the call and put it on speaker. A furious shout, loud enough to break windows, erupted from the phone.
You've been betraying me? Having an affair with my wife during work hours is a betrayal to the company as well. Don't expect to stay comfortably at the company from tomorrow.
I'm sorry. Kevin's apology was pitiful, with none of the charm he once had. I pushed the divorce papers towards him, tapping on the name field twice. So, will you sign the divorce papers for now?
No.
With the prospect of remarrying his affair partner gone, Kevin stubbornly refused to divorce. I called out towards the door, seemingly in a quandary. Says he, "This is a problem. What should we do?"
Is someone there?
Kevin asked, fearfully looking towards me as I gestured with my eyes towards the door. As he reluctantly looked at the door, which then opened to reveal someone, Kevin's face turned pale, and he began to tremble.
Dad, Mom, why are you here?
Standing there were the in-laws. Kevin wasn't on good terms with the in-laws' house, and after we got married, he forbade me from interacting with the in-laws. So, for Kevin, the last people he expected to see here were present. My mother-in-law briefly greeted me before walking up to Kevin with a raised hand, delivering a sharp slap that left his face red. With a face even redder than Kevin's, my mother-in-law started shouting.
How could you? You have a wonderful wife like Isabella and you cheat? What have you done?
Wait, Mom, you and Isabella haven't seen each other since we got married. How would you know she's wonderful? Before I could answer Kevin's reasonable question, my father-in-law spoke up.
Isabella has been sending us letters every month, showing us how Evelyn is growing up. Recently, she and Evelyn even came to visit us a few times. You, who haven't contacted us even once since getting married, don't deserve such a good person. Hey! Didn't I tell you not to contact them? Why are you going behind my back?
Kevin turned away from my father-in-law and yelled at me. In reality, the in-laws' house is a farmhouse, where Kevin's brother and his wife live together. Kevin, who inexplicably despised this arrangement, would constantly criticize and make snide remarks towards his brother's wife, resulting in him being kicked out after graduating college. When I learned from the in-laws and Kevin's brother's family that Kevin forbade me from talking to them because he feared his misdeeds would be exposed, I felt dizzy from my poor judgment in men. When I sent the greeting letters, they would kindly call me back. That's how we secretly continued our relationship.
You were deceiving me?
Who I associate with is none of your business. I don't want to hear it from a man who repeatedly cheats and gets involved in shady dealings. As I retorted, Kevin was visibly frustrated. Suddenly, he defiantly signed the divorce papers.
Seems like you went through a lot of trouble. Fine, I'll divorce you, but don't expect to get any money or the house from me. What are you talking about? You won't be dividing anything. Everything will go to Isabella.
My mother-in-law interjected, nudging Kevin, who was overwhelmed by her. I watched him coldly before storing the divorce papers in my bag and leaving the restaurant with my lawyer. Afterward, I went to the municipal office to submit the divorce papers. Though it happened quicker than I thought, my heart felt incredibly calm. Kevin was fired from his small company after being accused of having an affair with his boss's wife and engaging in infidelity during work hours. Having handed over the house and money to me, he was left with nothing. Eventually, the in-laws took him back to their house temporarily before sending him off to a distant relative's place. Kevin's brother's wife, not having forgiven his past actions, refused to even let Kevin into the house. Actually, her daughter, who got married last year and is soon due for delivery, was coming home soon. It being summer, Kevin spent a night in a small shed on the property before being taken away early in the morning by the relative. The affair partner and her husband, Kevin's boss, although they didn't divorce, were forced to live with the boss's parents under constant surveillance and endured endless taunts and harassment from her mother-in-law. Kevin once escaped to see the affair partner, but she was just playing with him, and upon seeing him, she demanded,
"Give me some money to escape."
My mother-in-law learned through relatives that Kevin was devastated by this. Kevin returned to the relative's house, shocked. Now, Kevin works non-stop, and even on his rare days off, he can't go out satisfactorily due to the relative's surveillance. I continue to maintain a relationship with the in-laws as Evelyn's grandparents. My brother-in-law's family are great people, and we enjoy meals together during events, and I feel like I have gained a new family. Evelyn was a bit upset about being left out, but was very happy about the divorce. Now living nearby, we go out together twice a week. As for me, having moved to a region with many tourist spots, I'm immersing myself in hobbies at leisure. Owning 2 houses in the city center and renting them out, I can cover my living expenses with the rental income alone. So, the severance pay, remaining insurance money, and the settlement from Kevin's divorce are freely used for Evelyn's college expenses, my hobbies, and travel. I often think I should have divorced sooner, enjoying such a leisurely life.
Well, shall we go?
Holding the plane ticket Evelyn gave me for my birthday, I set off on a trip.